Very well, welcome back. This is Business Insight. Tonight, I told you, we want to focus on the housing sector in this country. And of course, the question is, how do we ensure that each and every Kenyan has access to quality and decent houses? That has always been the million-dollar question. And tonight, we want to attempt to respond to these issues. And of course, bearing in mind that the housing is one of the big four agenda, as outlined by President Uhuru Kenyatta. The question is, how do we ensure that this becomes a reality? Joining me in the studio is Reuben Kimani, CEO, Username Investment Limited. Thank you very much, Reuben, for joining us here.
Thank you,
Next to Reuben, we have Peter Kamau, who's the CEO of Dhahabu Limited, Land Limited. Kamau, asante sana for joining us here.
Thank you.
I want to start, first of all, on your views. I mean, you represent the private sector, and I want to start with you, Reuben. First of all, when you scan the Big Four agenda on housing, what conclusions do you make?
I would like first to say hi to our viewers today.
Hello.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. Big Four is one of the most, I would say, vibrant strategies that you have had over a long time. And I'm looking at housing as one of the biggest amongst all the Big Four. When you look at universal healthcare, the agriculture and manufacturing, affordable housing is the biggest. So for me, I'm seeing this as a big breakthrough if you are to get it right. I've seen the plans, some of the plans that you have shown on that big screen. And for me, I feel like if you are to implement this meticulously, for me, it's about implementation.
Implementation.
The plans I have seen look very good, but if you are to implement, I sometimes even say, if you are to do even 50% of what you are saying, this is something that can change this country. Not just for housing. You talked about 350,000 jobs, even for other sectors as well.
Very well. He's talking about implementation, and of course, we know for sure Kenya has never had a shortage of beautiful master plans and documents and all these. Kamau, I want to hear from you. Do you share the same sentiments that the implementation of the Big Four agenda is the elephant in the room?
One thing, let me greet the viewers. Hi, the viewers. My name is Peter. To me, the Big Four agenda in terms of housing, in terms of housing, one, to me, it is possible. Two, there are dynamics that we can look, that we can make sure that we can be able to implement them. And one of the things that are, it all starts with me and you. So by the end of every day, let's stop throwing the game to one another. But by the end of the day, if me start as Peter, then it trickle to Reuben, and then it trickle to you. If all us come together, we can do it. And we all need to support. We as private developer and government, we support one another. So to me, it is possible.
To you, it is possible. When you scan the issues of housing in this country, and this is something that has been discussed over a long time in this country, and we know for sure that millions and millions of Kenyans, they do not have access to quality shelter in this country. Are you convinced that the government is doing enough to ensure that each and every Kenyan is housed decently?
One, I can give it 20%, but you also look at the things that affect that for the sake of implementation of this Big Four agenda of housing. One, if you look at the interest rate of the bank, still affecting the housing system. So if you also look the corruption, still affecting it in a bigger way. So to my best of my knowledge and to my best of what I can say, still government need to do something. One, let it reduce the tax rate, the KRA and all other stuff. To reduce it. Number two, let's try to make the approvals and the process of the documentation to be easier. By that one, the housing system it will be good.
So many things, Reuben. When we talk about affordable housing, number one, first of all, have we ever managed to get the concept right? In the understanding of government under the Big Four agenda, affordable housing is a unit that goes for between 650,000 shillings to 1 million shillings, actually 1.2 million shillings. When you look at the land prices in this country, and in the last 20 years, the cost of land has almost tripled in this country. And this has purely been driven by speculation. When you look at the cost of material, in the last 15 years, the cost of material has appreciated by a whole 72%. The question is this: is it possible to deliver a unit that goes for between 650,000 shillings to 1.2 million shillings in a country called Kenya?
But I would say that is a very difficult implementation, if I may say. It is quite difficult in the current state of things, if you are to ask me. If you look clearly, especially the cost of land, it has gone high, as you say, majorly because of speculation. But I also look at a country that is growing very fast. If you look at the population growth, there's some statistics that say we are 50 million, I think from World Bank. And every year we are increasing by 1 million people.
Yeah.
The other interesting statistics about urbanization, all of us come to Nairobi with no intention of going back to the village. They say about 500,000 people come to our urban centers every year, which puts a lot of strain on available infrastructure. And that's why you'll find, as much as this speculation, it's because what is available might not be enough for everyone at the moment. So you'll have, especially land, if you look at 50 kilometers from CBD, if you look at all the millions of people who are in this town, we may not be able to fit within that radius. So if you look at the costs of land, then you look at the cost of materials. There's a book I was reading, then I realized something like cement. If you look at the cost in Africa compared to what we have in other developed countries, ours is so expensive.
It's actually 4 times more expensive than.
Yet we are the guys who are in it. Somebody else was asking why building 1 kilometer of road in Africa will cost you maybe 1 billion shillings, Kenyan shillings. Same in the West will cost you $1 million. And maybe the cost of cement is one of those things, maybe that influences that. I don't know about the underlying issues about maybe what I've just said, but I believe that is also what is coming to the housing sector in the country. You'll find that some materials are too expensive, and for you to be able to achieve a house, a dignified house, not just any house, worth 1 million shillings, that will be a very difficult thing to do. But the good news is there are things that we can be able to do to alleviate that over time. I'm looking, like he has talked about some of the things that are already happening in the country. Like if you look at construction materials, if housing is that serious, I would say we zero rate some of these. I know the government is looking at collecting taxes, but we can zero rate some of the items.
Like roofing sheets.
I remember there's a time tax on motorbikes was, I think, zero rated. We did not have motorbikes, and we used to see motorbikes in Nigerian movies, if you remember. But later, the tax was removed, and all these people are employed right now because we were able to remove that tax. So I'm looking at that effect and what we can do in housing at the moment. Taxes we can be able to remove such that maybe one bag of cement, instead of going for the current maybe about 600, it goes for like 300 or even 200, so that we're able to achieve this objective. The other thing which I've always been advocating for, if you look at all these people who have bought plots, especially in Nairobi, we have quite a number. And I'm looking at a situation where we can be able to do maybe infrastructure, something like tarmac. Say If you go to Isinya, Thika, and all those areas where people have so many plots, go and do maybe a 5-kilometer stretch of tarmac or even 10. Like if you look at Thika Road, if you have to do 10-kilometer stretch from the highway, maybe you do one in Roiro, another one in Toll, like that. All those people who have been able to purchase plots in those areas may be able to build, because most of the people who are building, they look at where they are building. You may not be able to access that place. Yeah. There is no electricity, there is no water. And that's why you find developers like us will come, will have to tell you, because for this project that we are doing, you have to bring you water, you have to bring you electricity and all those things at our own cost.
Very well.
What about if we are to do those projects, those infrastructure projects as government, in areas where people can be able to build right time? You see a radius of 50 kilometers, 50 to 80 kilometers from CBD. Yeah. For me, I believe maybe the private sector can do more than 500,000 that the government is targeting.
Very well. Let me hear from you, Kamau. You know, we have seen a situation in the last 10 or 15 years. I mean, we have seen a huge subdivision of land in this country, especially in urban areas, whereby, I mean, we've gone as low as 1/8 of a quarter or 1/8 of an acre. Have we made the situation worse?
Not
by aggressive subdivision.
One, it will make us more, it will make work easier. That's number one. Number two, what I encourage, because nobody can afford 1 acre or 2 acres, but there's somebody who can afford 1/8. You get me? So what I always, but there's some areas we cannot encourage for subdivision of 1/8, because that one is maybe specifically for farming. But one of the things we look at it, whenever we private developer, we are dealing with the land, we need to also focus in this way. If we subdivide 1/8 here, is it going to help of anything? Some areas they are not helping, some areas they are helping. Because one, if you talk about, there are some places in Thika, Goingwa, those areas, they have make it more better than what was before. So if you look in that perspective, it all determines what perspective are you looking at it. Yeah.
And tell me this, I mean, you know, the whole plan of the government is to ensure that it taps into the private sector's funding to ensure that 90% of these units are delivered. The private sector, they have the money and they have the resources. Do you see any challenges, you know, that might arise when it comes to partnering with the government in the delivery of affordable houses?
Well, it all depends. My everything trickle. It all depends with one thing: the people who are going to be entrusted by government, are they going to be trustworthy? And if everything can be, if corruption be fight by us. Stop looking for the government, but we start fighting corruption now. I'm telling you the truth. This thing of housing, affordable housing, is coming to reality. But there also, it is possible. One, if government can lower down the cost of maybe what the Reuben was talking about, the cement. If you look even, if do you know it is importing a cement from China up to Mombasa, it will cost you 300
shillings, yeah,
per bag. And us here in Kenya, the baburi, the other thing, they are made here in Kenya. And 1 bag of cement, you are getting it at a cost of 550 or 650.
That is the retail price.
The retail price. So you get to wonder, if government can try to lower down, they go to, you know, because this guy in factory, before they price that late, they know that there's so many things that government have, there's so many tasks that government have taxed them. So if government can try to lower down those things, one, they lower down the production fee and other stuff. So that 1 bag of cement can come to a level of 250. It's very affordable. One, you also look in like things like electricity. Government make use that electricity is provided, infrastructure is provided, and 3, to crown it, let us, we have a positive mind to earn this. Because if we are doing it 50-50, is all of us can have a positive mind toward this, and we start working toward this, we are going to make it.
Tell me this, Reuben. I mean, for example, when you look at Nairobi, and we know this has been a serious challenge, the issue of land grabbing. And we know for sure that, like Nairobi, for example, in the 80s and the early 90s, the government, the Nairobi City Council then, and Kenya Railways, they were the biggest owners of space in the city of Nairobi. As we speak now, that is not the case. Serious land grabbing has taken place. And so you find a situation whereby the government, even the government itself, it doesn't have space to put up houses. How are we going to ensure we put up these units in the face of serious land grabbing?
Maybe I would start from the plan that has been put there. And I looked at it and I saw a schedule of how they intend to do these houses. 5,000 here, this county is going to do 200,000. Yeah. Some houses in Park Road, others from other estates that are owned by the government, not owned by the government. I felt like we may not be able to achieve, for us to be very practical about this affordable housing and the grabbing question, we may not be able to do all those things at once. We may start with what the government already owns and work on that. I look at that plan and said, if like the 5,000 houses that are being built in Mavoko, I think those are at advanced stages. We first do that and we finish, because the land question is not there in terms of ownership by the government. Then we go as they have been able to put in that paper. They implement what they have said so that they can be able to achieve what is not in question. There's also the legal question in all this debate. These are litigious country, if I may say, where you start something and people go to court. So the moment you start trying to recover the land that have been grabbed all over the years, that is the only thing you'll do as government. So you'll forget about affordable. For me, I would feel
you end up, pacing up and down in the corridors of
justice, and you'll forget affordable housing. So I felt maybe when the government work with what we already know, the plan that they have put in place, let's have those houses come. And I believe the public goodwill is there. The moment you see 5,000 houses today, another 10,000 after 1 year, people will be able to contribute to this, and this thing will have a ripple effect. Then we can be able to then sit down and say, let us start recovering. After we have built some houses, this public support, everyone can see what we are doing. Then we start reclaiming that land. And you can see we have a lot of demolition taking place, telling me that this war is possible. If you go back and check what has been grabbed over the years, it's possible to look and start step by step. If you try to do all these things at once, for me, I think it will not work.
It will backfire.
But it has to be step by step until. But I insist, we have very good plans. All those plans that you have, what we have to do is to have meticulous implementation, no nonsense kind of implementation, so that it comes to pass, so that you go through all the roadblocks. There are laws that need to be repealed. Charles Hinga, the PS for housing, has been very passionate about this whole concept. There are laws to be repealed. There is land to be procurement process to be shortened. You know, the government procurement process takes time.
It's a bit lengthy.
And I would like to say this. For us to be able to achieve this, we need to clearly look at what hinders it. If it's about construction materials that we are debating here, can we check, like how that house is supposed to cost maybe between 600 and 3 million, I think for the highest in that order. Let us check what makes this thing. If we say it is land, how are we exactly going to solve this? And because we have land in this country, though it may not be enough in Nairobi alone for all of us, can we check what we need to do to ensure it is available at the right price? Because there's some land that lays bare. If it's about construction, I think we need to make very hard decision and zero rate some of these things so that people can say, instead of a house costing 3 million to build, it costs 2. And as a developer, I can come and realize there's an opportunity here, and you'll find username, you find the hub, and many other companies out there coming in to do it.
Very well.
And help the government.
I mean, you have pointed out at Mavoko, you know, the 5,000 units in Mavoko. And we know for sure, I mean, for you, by the time you decide that this is where I'm going to settle, you have to look at a number of factors. Number one is transport. Will I be able to get to my place of work or to my place of business, you know, with a lot of ease? There is security. There is water. There is power. I want to find out from you, Kamau. We have huge tracts of land in this country that are lying idle, that are owned by the government, from the Agricultural Development Corporation to institutions like the Kenya Railways. We have huge tracts of land that are lying idle, but access to those places is completely non-existent. Yeah. How then do we ensure that we can have a situation whereby people, they live in like 100 kilometers outside Nairobi, but they still come to work here in Nairobi, you know, fast enough, and they get home safe as well?
It ought to recall the infrastructure, so loads, electricity. For example, in that one in Mavoko, I think from here to Mavoko, it's around 75 kilometers, 75 to 100. I think it is less than.
It's actually less than 50.
It's less than 50 kilometers. And you can realize, one, there's a hectic of traffic jam is quite high. Mombasa Road and other stuff. And if you go back and you read about Vision 2030, I love going to that book of Vision 2030. You talk about Greater Eastern Bypass. You talk about, there's so many roads that are being proposed. If government can be able to implement and make those land to be accessible, one, by those roads that are being proposed, they be implemented. I think even you can live in Embu and you work in Nairobi. Even Meru. If we can be able to have good infrastructure, for example, if you go to China, you find someone is living in Guangzhou, and by the end of the day he's traveling like 400 kilometers to go where he's working, but they have train. Because they have a high-speed train system that travels at a speed of 280 kilometers per hour. And we find that is workable. And let me tell you something. With what government correctors task here in Kenya, I can tell you that one is enough to change Kenya. But you find before it gets to the account of government, it have get to so many people pocket. And you come to realize that if all of us, and I still trickle to one question, to one thing, if all of us we can fight corruption, we make sure what government correct, it is invested back to people and to Wajik of Kenya, we can make it. Because you look, and I always say like this, making one road here in Kenya, when contractor is given, it's taking 5 years before he complete it. If all of us we become faithful and trustworthy with what government have entrusted us and what everyone have been entrusted in responsibility, it's going to be workable. We work on infrastructure, those trains they get in place, and Kenya gonna be good. Yeah.
Reuben, tell me this. I mean, 25%, of the Kenyan population, they live in urban areas. It is estimated that by the year 2030, about 40% of Kenyans are going to live in urban areas. What do we need to do at this point to forestall a housing crisis in this country?
I think for me, I usually look at practicality of ideas that are presented. Of course, there's politics and there's also the reality. The ideas that cannot survive for so long. For me, it's about practicality. What we need to do first, this housing crisis, like the government is providing for 500,000 until 2022, they're able to achieve.
Yeah.
But the number of families that need housing in this country is actually 2.4 million. They say the shortage is 2 million, increasing at 200,000 every year. Developers do 50,000, and 50,000 are usually high-end units. The common mwananchi cannot be able to afford.
Yeah.
So these crises keep increasing. What I think we need to do, we need to have a long-term approach, maybe not up to 2022 definitely, a long-term approach where we ask ourselves, how has this thing been solved in other countries? China has 1 billion people, but maybe they are much better than us in terms of housing. If you look at it that way. We are just 50 million. It tells you our problem is much less. We can be able to study that. And one of the things I read about, especially in Mexico, what they did, they identified all areas within 80-kilometer radius of the main cities. Like we check 80-kilometer radius from Nairobi, that is Kajiado, it is past Thika, it is Konza, Naivasha. What you do, you draw a radius from Nairobi. Then maybe cities like Nakuru, Kisumu and Mombasa, you can do 50 kilometers. Then what you do in those areas, you develop serious infrastructure that can be able to support people who are building. The government cannot build houses for the population. Yeah. You just facilitate, enable by zero rating. But the key for me is infrastructure. We are talking about people who live like 200 kilometers away, and they are able to commute in first world countries. We need a long-term approach, can take 10 years. We need even metro kind of station. I've been to Europe myself, and you cannot imagine. A very long distance can be covered in some few minutes. Yeah. If you look at even SGR, which has been implemented, you come from places like Konza, which are like 60 kilometers away. You take 25 minutes. What about if you are to have metros 80 kilometers from CBD? Yeah. People would stay 80 kilometers. We had Superhighway, and I would like to maybe congratulate the government for the roads that are being done. Maybe the media has not been able to highlight this. We have a very serious road in Wayakiwe coming up, another Doring in Mombasa Road. I would really encourage those efforts, and some roads that are being done, especially in Gong, for example, where you have so many projects. There are tarmacs that are coming up. If only they can be finished, this one would work. Imagine how many people would drive 80 kilometers radius from Nairobi. Those are so many people. And for me, I feel like that is a long-term kind of an approach that we can take. Yeah. We also need, very fast, we also need to look at the mortgages. In this plan, they have talked about National Housing Development Fund. Yeah. Maybe that one will help. And they also need to look at the construction materials, like we said. And finally, especially in this affordable housing thing, the allocation mechanism, so that we don't bungle it up. There are people who are very needy, and there are people who are not needy. I think we need a very serious criteria to know who can qualify for these houses, and it has to be very clear from the beginning, so that we don't have a very challenging problem in 2022. We have done 100,000 houses, and they did not go to the right people. We need to look at that.
Kamau, tell me this. I mean, so he has talked about, the number of, and that is very true, the government has invested massive resources, in the expansion of infrastructure in this country. But still, we are yet to see the government, coming up with a comprehensive public transport system. And there is no country, that can deal with perennial challenges of traffic jam without a comprehensive mass transport system. Are we then winking in the dark?
I can see by the load the government is proposing, and the government that the load are on process getting done. I think the government need to get more serious and coming more harsh to the engineers and contractors that are on site. Because you end up seeing that the road was proposed, the money was given, the road is halfway, and it is 10 years down the line. So if government can go back to the drawing board and get at least a bit serious, this thing is going to be done. And I'm trusting and I'm believing in the next 1 year or 2 years, they're gonna be light.
There will be light at the end of the tunnel.
There'll be light.
Gentlemen, because we have to wind up. I mean, you talked about Europe, which is a very good example. And I want to give you a very good example of Geneva, of Switzerland, whereby, because Geneva is a very expensive city, you have a lot of people who works in Geneva, but they live on the other side of France because they use the train system, which is very much efficient. And it will take you less than 1 hour, for you to cross from France and come and work in Geneva, and then you go back in the evening. Reuben, what then do we need to do, to implement such a system here in this country so that we ensure that people have the ability to move from point A to point B without being inconvenienced?
I think he has raised a very important point, especially about accountability. I think this is one of the biggest challenges in our country, not just with government. We are looking at a society. I usually ask myself, am I responsible enough? Because you'll find, even when you hear there's a lot of corruption in some places, there's also something much bigger called mismanagement. You may not be able to have corruption in your department, but you have a lot of mismanagement where resources go to the wrong places. What I have seen the government try to do, especially over the last 1, 2, 3 years, they have been trying to put a lot of money in development. But sometimes when you read the newspaper, you get shocked because that money, every day you hear 2 billion, 3 billion, did not go to the right use. What I see, especially not just for Kenya, in Africa, we have enough resources. If you look at the tax being collected over time, it has increased. And I feel there's a lot that can be done even with the money. The key question to ask ourselves for us to be able to implement these things, how can we make the cost of like doing 1 kilometer of road same as what you have in the Western world? How can we make our way of implementing projects? You talk about projects that might even take 10 years, the same as in the West, or even in China that has grown very fast. Those guys are able to, I've had an opportunity of working with Chinese and telecommunication company before. You'll find that these guys are quite very aggressive in terms of their work culture. Things get done and they are closed. But if you compare with some of the projects that we do, especially from the government angle, sometimes they take too long, they take too much resources. I think I would say,
there's a
like
lot
he
of
said,
bureaucracy.
as much as we blame government, I think it also boils down to us. Government is you and me, and we keep changing our leaders and nothing is changing. So it means there's a problem in the society, and we need to address it from me first and say, I have to be responsible on the work I'm doing. You find out if you come to Username, for example, I know I'm responsible for my clients. They come to invest, they come to look for homes. I have to deliver that. There's no question about it. What we need is a culture change where we have responsibility. You are given a job in a government ministry, you're supposed to deliver a road, the correct budget. Why not do it? I see this a lot, especially in Asia. People even commit suicide because they felt they did not deliver enough. I think we need that change of culture. But at the same time, I think we also have to push our government. I believe there is a lot of, they have done enough trips. Everyone knows about Europe.
Benchmarking trips.
And all those things. And I think this is the time to get real and say, this is, we have the Car Road, which was well done. Mombasa Road is being done, and many other projects. This is what exactly we need to do in terms of infrastructure. This is what exactly we need to do in terms of accountability, use of money in government, and many other things, and get real in it. But for me, at the end of the day, as we close, I would say we implement what we have planned. We have enough plans in this country, and I think it's just a matter
has always
of
been the challenge.
Coming and saying, let us start doing this. It is supposed to take 1 year. Let us get it done. And I believe it will be good. It is not that easy, but I believe we have to start from somewhere.
Good. Kamal, what are your final thoughts?
My final thought it is this. We are responsible of doing it. We can make it and we can do it. If all of us, corruption, we can start fighting corruption in our house, in our bedroom, then we can.
In our bedroom?
Yes.
That's a very interesting
Well,
one.
let me tell you something.
There's corruption in the bedroom.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
If we start fighting it in our level, as Eric have said it, Reuben have said it, we are going to make it.
Good.
So it is possible, and let's have a positive mind. Yeah.
Thank you so very much, gentlemen, for joining us here and for sharing your insights. Definitely, it is up to us. This is our country, and we must do all that it takes to ensure that we take it to the next level.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, O'Brien.
Well, Reuben Kimani is the CEO of Username Investment, and Peter Kamau is the CEO of the Harbour Land Limited. The two joining us here to share their insight on what we need to do in order to deliver affordable housing to Kenyans.